went hunting for females on the University of Georgia's campus. And in his hunt, he encountered 22-year-old Laken Riley.
People have used this case for their own personal gain, financial gain, political gain. The evidence that Jose Ibarra killed Laken Riley is circumstantial.
The university, I found it. Ma'am.
I suspected that this wasn't an accident based on the circumstances in which she had been found. So I started communicating with Sergeant Epps that we need to begin setting up a perimeter to preserve any evidence to prevent the crime that occurred.
The man accused of brutally murdering nursing student Laken Riley is now standing trial for this shocking crime. Jose Ibarra is facing life in prison if convicted for killing the 22-year-old while she was out jogging on the University of Georgia campus back in February. After waiving his right to a jury trial, Ibarra's fate is solely in the hands of the judge. We're going to break down the key testimony so far from the trial. Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law&Crime. I'm Jesse Weber. The highly anticipated Laken Riley murder trial kicked off on Friday, and the man accused of killing her, 26-year-old Jose Ibarra, is looking at life behind bars if he's convicted. The death of the 22-year-old, a nursing student at Augusta University, shocked the community. It shocked the country, became a part of the national debate over immigration since, as investigators later revealed, Ibarra was an undocumented immigrant. Laken was tragically killed on February 22nd of this year when she was just out for a morning jog on the University of Georgia campus. Prosecutors say Ibarra approached her while wearing a black hooded sweatshirt, a black hat, kitchen gloves. He allegedly blocked her path as she tried to call 911 and then proceeded to attack her. Laken apparently fought back, scratching her alleged attacker's arms and neck as she struggled to escape. Ibarra allegedly tried to pull Laken's shirt over her neck in an attempt to rape her before strangling her and hitting her head multiple times with a rock. Her body was later found along a wooded trail on the university campus. Now, Ibarra's defense attorneys say that while the evidence definitely points to the violence of this crime, it doesn't prove that Ibarra is the person responsible for Laken's death. And also, I'll tell you, they may be putting the focus not only on somebody else, but someone close to Jose Ibarra. I'll explain that in a minute. But Ibarra was arrested a day after the crime. He's remained in custody without bail since then. He faces an array of charges: malice murder, felony murder, kidnapping, aggravated assault, aggravated battery, hindering an emergency telephone call, tampering with evidence, and also a peeping Tom charge. Now, that relates to him allegedly looking into the windows of a campus apartment on the same day that Laken was killed. Now, just before the trial began, Jose Ibarra, through his defense team, did something interesting. They requested a bench trial, meaning that a judge, rather than a jury, will decide if he's guilty or not. And that last-minute request follows many failed motions from Jose Ibarra's defense team to change the trial's location and to exclude evidence. So it seems that they were concerned about a jury being swayed by the graphic nature of this crime, and that they could decide this case based on emotion and not the facts, the law, the evidence. So instead, they have opted for the judge, H. Patrick Haggard, to be the trier of fact, more of a sober analysis of the evidence. Okay, we'll see if it works for them. The only problem is, another disadvantage to think about, now you only have one person deciding this case now. That could be a problem. By the way, I have to say, as heartbreaking as this story is, and it certainly is, it's also an important one to cover, especially as the nation has been following it. And look, it is our privilege to be able to break down for you what has been happening in that courtroom. And one of the reasons that we can do that is because we get amazing support from our sponsors. And I have to call out one in particular right now, Morgan & Morgan. I have to say, look, if you should get hurt, America's largest injury law firm may be who you want in your corner. Not only over 1,000 attorneys and support staff, not only is the process super simple because it can all be done right from your smartphone, not only is there no upfront fee, but Morgan & Morgan's track record is incredible. Recent verdicts like $12 million in Florida, $26 million in Philadelphia, $6.8 million in New York. All of these, mind you, considerably higher than the highest insurance offers in these cases. So if you're injured, you can easily start a claim at forthepeople.com/LC Sidebar. So with day one in the books, I want to recap some of the highlights about what happened in that courtroom. And I have to start with opening statements. Special Prosecutor Sheila Ross argued that Jose Ibarra was, quote, hunting for females when he allegedly killed Laken Riley, and she revealed the harrowing details surrounding her murder, including the fact that Laken's fight for her life was just savage. And also, what was the key evidence that was left behind?
On February 22nd, Jose Ibarra put on a black hat, a hoodie-style jacket, and some black kitchen-style disposable gloves. And he went hunting for females on the University of Georgia's campus. And in his hunt, he encountered 22-year-old Laken Riley on her morning jog. And when Laken Riley refused to be his rape victim, he bashed her skull in with a rock repeatedly. That is what this case is all about. The evidence will show that Laken fought. She fought for her life. She fought for her dignity. And in that fight, she caused this defendant to leave forensic evidence behind. She also marked her killer for the entire world to see. The forensic evidence that he left behind in this fight is his DNA, and only his DNA and Laken's, underneath Laken's right fingernails. He also left behind in a struggle with her over her phone, because the court will hear that she called 911. He left behind his left thumbprint on her iPhone, which was found not far from her body at the crime scene. And it is that forensic evidence alone that would give you enough evidence to find him guilty as charged on the counts in this indictment.
Let's process that for a second. DNA evidence, scratches, injuries to his hands, arms, neck, back, thumbprint on the phone. Is that an open and shut case? You might think so, but that's not even all they allegedly have. Because Ross also indicated that when you look at security camera video at Ibarra's apartment complex at around 9:44 a.m. that morning, you see a man throw something into a recycle bin and also something into the bushes. And I want you to keep that in mind, because we're going to talk about that soon. It's going to be, I think, arguably one of the more key pieces of evidence in this case. But prosecutors also say that Laken's smartwatch was important, that it gave a timeline of events. Her smartwatch indicated that something happened at 9:10 a.m. She stops dead in her tracks. She initiates the SOS emergency function on her phone to call 911. Minutes later, her watch moves 65 feet into the woods, and then her heart stops at 9:28 a.m. That's based on the watch data. So 18 minutes after first encountering Jose Ibarra, according to the prosecutor's theory. Now, what did the defense say? Well, defense attorney Dustin Kirby argued that the evidence against Ibarra is circumstantial, claiming that it would take gymnastics for the prosecution to be able to prove that Ibarra killed Laken.
What happened to Laken Riley is graphic and disturbing, and it is a tragedy. The loss of any life that young and apparently full of promise is a tragedy. And I'm sorry that the family is having to go through this and be here for the presentation of this evidence. People have used this case for their own personal gain, financial gain, political gain. And while this process has its place for testing evidence, it's very poorly suited to healing hearts and minds. So it's the evidence that we have to talk about. And the evidence in this case is very good that Laken Riley was murdered. The evidence that Jose Ibarra killed Laken Riley is circumstantial. The evidence that anyone had any intent or certainly committed any sexual assault is speculation. Most importantly, in this case, you'll hear no evidence that a sexual assault was committed. You'll hear nothing from the GBI, the FBI, UGAPD, ACCPD, that after looking at all of the evidence in this case, scouring for anything that could help prove this allegation in the state's indictment, that they found any biological evidence that would suggest that, any physical evidence that would suggest that. There's no injuries that are consistent with the sexual assault. And in this case, it's an effort to explain a tragedy, but it's not based on evidence. The evidence that Jose Ibarra killed anyone is circumstantial. And it's this kind of gymnastics that it will take to tell the story with this circumstantial evidence. We waived a jury trial in this case with the hope and trust that despite the nature of this evidence, that you could come to a verdict that was not just a way of easing this family's suffering, but it was based on an impartial and honest assessment of the evidence in this case. If that happens and the presumption of innocence is respected, there should not be enough evidence to convince you beyond a reasonable doubt that Mr. Ibarra is guilty of the crimes charged.
I don't know. Is it really just a circumstantial evidence case based on what the prosecution says they have? We'll talk about it. I'm also going to talk about where the defense is pointing their finger in a second, but I want to move on to the evidence. So Laken Riley, she left for her run at around 9 a.m. on the morning of February 22nd. And as I mentioned, it was only about 10 minutes after that she called 911. And that eerie 911 phone call was played in court.
Clark County 911. Hello, this is Clark County 911. Hello, Clark County 911. Can anyone hear me? Clark County 911.
Yeah, mostly silent 911 call where the only sounds that can be heard are birds chirping, and then you hear this stomping sound towards the end of that call. When dispatchers attempted to call back, they got no answer. When Laken Riley's roommates realized that she never came back home after her run, they went out to look for her. In fact, Laken's roommate, Lily Steiner, testified how she was growing concerned about Laken and how she used the Find My iPhone feature to try to find her.
I went downstairs and I didn't see her sitting at her usual spot at the kitchen table. So I checked her location to see where she was. And I saw that she was on a run at on a trail that she typically ran. The LR is the initials of Laken Riley. You can see that at the bottom. And underneath her name is a rough just address, I guess, of where she was at. And then underneath that, it says now. This is the exact time of when her location, the way that it updated, it would say now. So that was her location at that exact time.
And is that what you saw when you first checked it?
Yes.
Now, where is that location? And is your house in here as well? And other people? We see other initials, CH MC, whatever.
Yes, so CH is Connolly Huth. That is my roommate. And so her location right there is at our house. And then MC, that is one of my other friends who lived further down the street.
And LR was Laken Riley.
Yes.
And where is that location that you saw her? Are you familiar with that location?
Roughly, yes.
Yeah. And
yeah.
when you checked it, what about the first time you checked it? Approximately what time?
It was about 9:30 from what I remember.
So did you, again, check it again?
Yes, so when I got home from my first set of errands, and I saw that Laken still wasn't home. That wasn't unusual because it was only about an hour after I checked her first location, so I thought maybe she was just still on a run. Checked it a second time around 10:45, I believe. That's a rough estimate. And I saw that it was in the same location. That did raise some concerns. We walked down using her knowledge of the path that Laken would usually take on a run. And then when we got a little bit closer, we were using the Find My Friends app to kind of go directly to where her location was until we were standing kind of right around it.
When you were at the location where you felt that Laken was showing on her phone, did you see Laken?
We did not.
At some point, did you all return home?
We did.
Okay, when you got home, what did you do?
It wasn't shortly after that we got home that I called 911, or not 911, excuse me, the UGA Police Department.
So both Steiner and another roommate reported Laken was missing shortly after noon, and the call that Steiner made to the police, that was played for the judge.
Hi, we're calling because our roommate went out for a run at 9. He usually runs like through Lake Herrick behind grad housing, and we haven't heard from her. And we all just got like service back, so we don't think it has anything to do with the outage. We went to go look to where her last location was, and all we found was an AirPod.
Do you know if she has class or anything at this point?
She has a class at 1, so that's it's her nursing. I guess the nursing school, and she does not miss class.
12:08:43, 2nd February 22, 2024.
How did you get her last known location? Was it from her phone?
Yes, it was updating, so that's why we're a little confused. Yeah, but we didn't see her phone anywhere when we left. She hasn't moved for almost 3.5 hours now.
How did she get there? Did she run from your house there, or did she take a vehicle there?
Yes, she runs the trail. Her car's still at our house.
We've got officers on the way, all right?
Okay, thank you.
And she was also shown Ring doorbell footage that positively identified Laken Riley when she left for her run.
I'm going to pause it quickly. Do you see, first of all, on States 4 that is now being published, the date and the time of this footage?
Yes.
Could you tell the court where is it and what is it?
It's in the bottom right corner.
And what's the date and what's the time?
February 22nd, 2024, 9:03 Eastern.
And who is that person that we see in State's Exhibit 4?
That is Laken.
After 9:03 a.m. on the 22nd day of February, did you ever hear from Laken again?
I did not.
Did you ever receive any text messages from her?
Not after 9:03, no.
Any calls from her?
No.
What makes this case unique, as you're seeing, is prosecutors have a timeline. You don't usually have that, but based on the digital evidence, you are seeing, seemingly, when this killing took place. And that's, again, a huge, huge advantage for the prosecution to lay all this out. But now I want to move on to Sergeant Kenneth Maxwell, because he was the one who found Laken Riley's body about a half hour after she was reported missing. And he described the condition of her body. In fact, body cam footage was played that captured the sergeant's reaction to discovering her body. And I should tell you that Laken Riley's mother had to leave the courtroom while this was playing. Completely understandable. Can only imagine how difficult this would be. That footage showed Sergeant Maxwell locating Laken Riley, attempting to perform CPR on her. And by the way, we were only allowed to film the audio of his reaction, where he can be heard saying that Laken appeared to have been attacked.
To the university, I found it. Ma'am. Oh, I need EMS immediately to the location where the phone pings. Ma'am. She's down, she's not breathing. Potentially been attacked. Starting CPR now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30. I'm not getting any pulse. She's stiff. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30. That's what you was Zach. 1, 2, go back through. What'd you say? 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. Take over. Looks like blunt force trauma to the head. Her shirt has been removed above her breast.
When you observed Laken Riley, first of all, how would you describe her clothing?
So it appeared that her clothing, at least her shirt, had been removed to up above her breast. It did not look as if something had unintentionally happened, as if somebody falls and has a wardrobe malfunction. It looked more intentional, as if somebody had attempted to either remove her top or maybe had used it to drag her.
And we also heard from a crime scene specialist too. GBI Special Agent Daniela Stewart. She was the one who analyzed and photographed the crime scene on the afternoon of that killing. And she described the injuries to Laken's torso and head and showed the crime scene photos from the area where Laken's body was found, saying it appeared as if a, quote, significant disturbance had occurred.
Did you observe injuries to Laken Riley's body?
Yes.
State's Exhibit 35. Tell the court, first of all, where overall did you observe injuries?
So there were injuries to the left side of her head, and then there were also these linear marks on her torso.
What injuries did you see when you pulled down her underwear?
There was another linear mark that looks kind of similar to the ones that were on her torso, but a little bit wider.
I want to go on to your evidence markers 2 and 3. What were those?
This was evidence markers 2 and 3 represent rocks that were bloodstained, and then evidence marker 4 represents the tree that had bloodstains.
All right, before we zoom in on 2, 3, and 4, what, if anything, did you notice about this area in your crime scene sketch that you labeled 2, 3, and 4?
So in this area near evidence markers 2, 3, and 4, there was also an area where I could actually see the ground, where the leaves were significantly disturbed to the point where I could physically see the ground.
And why is that significant to you?
Because the leaf coverage was pretty thick throughout the entire crime scene, and there were no other areas where I could actually see the ground.
So what conclusions did you draw based upon that?
Based on that, and then also like her hair being very matted, some type of significant disturbance happened in that area.
That is a rock. Is this one 2 or 3?
That one is evidence marker 2, and there were some hairs on that rock.
What type of hair?
It looked like it was brown.
Crime scene specialists also took photos of Jose Ibarra, where again, injuries can be seen on different parts of his body.
Did you observe injuries on his body?
Yes.
And did you photograph those injuries?
I did.
And the time that you saw him, that day, is he heavier or lighter than he is today as far as weight?
When I photographed him, he was heavier.
States 94, and it might be really hard to see, but maybe not. What does that depict?
An overall photograph of his hands.
Okay. And did you observe or photograph any injuries to his hands?
I did.
In general, just show us where they were, and then I'll try to get the close-up photos. Okay, so you're on the left hand for the record?
Yes.
Okay. And you pointed to the wrist area?
Yes.
Left pinky finger?
Yes.
Okay.
And I believe I photographed this one as well.
Right middle finger?
Yes. That's the wrist, left wrist.
States 98.
Left pinky.
Whose scale is that?
Mine.
That's 96. States 96.
Oh yeah, that would have been I think the left middle finger from the previous photo. A scratch on the forearm.
Can you show that to the court? Is that where your sticker is?
Yeah.
Your scale?
Yes.
Okay.
I try to put the scale close to the injury.
And is that his right side or his left side?
I believe that's the left side.
What I need
Yes, because it would be here.
That's the left side?
Yes, the left side of the neck.
And what did you observe to the left side of his neck?
Okay. Scratch.
All right. And is that, you just point to it for the record, above the necklace but below the ear?
Yes.
States 115.
That's the same injury with a scale.
And what side of your scale is that injury for the record? In the middle of the photograph to the right side of the scale?
Yes.
States 112.
That would be the right side of the front neck.
What did you observe there? Okay,
Looked like it was a scratch.
Okay, in the middle of the photo? States 113.
Same scratch with a scale.
If these injuries are true, why did he have them? Was he engaged in a struggle with Laken Riley? Now, investigators, they searched nearby dumpsters where Laken Riley had been killed to try to uncover evidence. And one of the last witnesses of the day was Officer Zachary Davis, and he said he was checking dumpsters at apartment complexes around UGA, and he noticed some suspicious clothing in one of these dumpsters.
I noticed there were 3 dumpsters, 2 of which were trash receptacles and one that was clearly marked for recycling. I checked the 2 trash ones. They have the sliding doors on the side. Looked in there, didn't notice anything. Again, nothing that really stuck out to me as pertinent. Finally went to the one that was strictly labeled for recycling. The sides of it were welded shut, but the top was open, so I climbed up onto it and looked down into it, and that's why I noticed the blue jacket.
Could you see anything else on the jacket at some point?
Not from this height. At this point, we didn't want to just be chasing down clothes in dumpsters, but given this proximity to the scene as well as the photo that was taken, I immediately notified my supervisor so that he could contact the University of Georgia Police Department since they were working the case. Detectives from UGA came out to look at it. They decided they would like to collect the evidence. I volunteered to climb into a dumpster, and upon picking up the jacket, I noticed that there were leaves on it. There were tears on the front as well, and what appeared to be some darker red or brown stains on the sleeves near the wrist.
And body-worn camera footage was shown to the judge, too, of the recovery of this jacket.
Oh, yeah. There's hair on the buttons, ripped up sleeves. Can you bundle it up with whatever is, yeah, let me open this bag. All right. See a brunette? Yeah. The women's long hair wrapped up in the buttons.
I mentioned this before, but what we're seeing is prosecutors trying to prove that Jose Ibarra threw out evidence when he got back to his apartment in the recycling bin and in the bushes. And it turns out that law enforcement reportedly finds a dark hooded jacket with blood stains that they say match Laken Riley. And possibly Ibarra's DNA is on that too. And also, they find these strands of long, dark hair on a button on the jacket, presumably Laken Riley's too. And prosecutors also say there's this nearby apartment that has a doorbell Ring video camera set up with a view of a dumpster that actually captures a man that they say later is identified as Jose Ibarra disposing of something into that dumpster too. So as if you didn't think that this case was strong enough with everything that I mentioned, the DNA, the forensics, the smartwatch data, now you have this. So some strong evidence in this case. Now, it is being reported that the defense plans to call at least one of Jose Ibarra's brothers on the stand. He apparently had been living with two of them. And one of those brothers is Diego Ibarra, who was actually arrested and charged with green card fraud. And it's also being reported that he may have had connections to a Venezuelan gang known as Tren de Aragua. And I have to say, based on some cross-examination by the defense in this case, they arguably may be putting the focus on him as a potential suspect. News Nation is reporting that last week, the defense showed pictures that show Diego was wearing the same baseball hat that Jose was said to have been wearing on the day that Laken Riley was killed, and maybe was wearing similar clothes. And when you think of brothers, close DNA matches perhaps, so you have to wonder if that's where the defense is going, putting the blame on a different Ibarra. We shall see. The Laken Riley murder trial against Jose Ibarra continues this week. You can stream gavel-to-gavel coverage on our Law&Crime YouTube channel, and we'll make sure to cover it for you here on Sidebar if there are any kind of major developments. But that's all we have for you right now here on this episode of Sidebar. Everybody, thank you so much for joining us. And as always, please subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Jesse Weber. Speak to you next time.